When trying to provide protection for the Bund area around large atmospheric storage tanks, something that we sometimes see clients trying to do is grade the entire area around the tanks or inside the Bund. What you see sometimes with this is that if you then try to provide coverage for it, you're going to get very bad coverage in a number of cases just because the area is so large that even if you're setting very large fire sizes for alarm control action, or very large D multiples in the case of this setup, you're going to wind up seeing some very poor coverage in a number of cases. So we can see that even with that larger D giving me much larger envelopes than my 40 kilowatt field of view cone that I'm displaying here for the detectors, I'm still getting some pretty lackluster coverage, even though based just on field of view cones, it seems like I should be getting pretty good coverage. So what do we do about this then? And this is even with using a 30-meter range, slightly desensitized MSIR detector. I still can't get very good coverage even with the 4D target fire size. So we can try to fix this by adding a unreasonably large number of detectors. Like if I want to, I could add a couple more detectors here and a couple more detectors here. So probably 8 more in there and maybe a few more here. But that gets you these detector counts that are just unreasonably high. Most clients, most sites are not going to want to pay for and provide coverage for or have this many detectors. One way that you might be able to get around this is assuming these are not, producing or containing something like methanol or something else that's going to burn with a very pure flame. We can try to change the detector make and model to something that's going to have a slightly better range profile, like switching to a visual detector like the 301 and then changing the sensitivity to 90 because those things are usually very effective at range. If I do that, then that 4D fire size, oops, sorry, turned off my grade. With that 4D fire size becomes a little bit more reasonable. I'm starting to close some of those coverage gaps. But while this is a lot better, and I'm achieving this with a somewhat reasonable number of detectors, 6 detectors for these 2 tanks, it kind of misses the real problem that we're running into here, and that I'm trying to treat the entire Bund equally and try to provide coverage for the entire Bund equally, even though intuitively I understand that this is probably not an accurate representation of the risk here and what I actually want to do for this tank or these, or these Bund areas. And if I have a slightly more sophisticated model, or if I know where this is located, oftentimes what I'm going to see is that my Bund is going to have some kind of valve coming out of the tank and possibly a transfer pump. And then after a certain distance, that's going to go down underneath the ground and it's going to become a submerged line. And I'm also going to have 1 or 2 entry points into my Bund. And I might have, say, possibly near my valves, I'm probably going to have a low point in the Bund where most of my liquid is going to tend to drain to. So at that point, rather than trying to assess and grade the entire Bund area, what I can do is grade the area where I know the leak is most likely to occur. Say, put my grade bubbles around these valves and these flange connections and these possible leak points. Or if there is a pump right in here, grade the pump and maybe assign a small grade volume around where the leak, the low point in the Bund is. Or if I want to, I can select and I can assign a grade to these stairs if I want to. And I can see if I can get good coverage on these critical points where I know coverage is actually more important. And then rather than trying to provide coverage for this entire Bund, I could maybe just put a detector here facing this direction, put a detector here facing this direction. and maybe if there's a low point in the bund I'm worried about, or if I want to provide coverage for this thing, I could park another detector here facing back on the back side of the tank, and I could have pretty good coverage at that point. And I could have my coverage optimized and prioritized to the point where I think the fire is actually most likely to start and be an issue. So that's more a performance-based look at fire detection around a tank bund versus just saying, okay, I have this entire bund area, let's see if I can detect a fire anywhere in this very large, hard to cover open space. That's hard to cover not because of obstruction, but because just the vast amount of space that you're trying to cover with a device that is ultimately range limited.